Hello everyone and welcome to week 9. This week we are going to be doing a magic 8 ball that is using Math.Random, Math.Floor, and then all of the stuff that we have learned about JavaScript to this point. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab my files here. Okay, they're going to download. Okay. Ooh. So, first thing I'm going to do is create my week 9 Baker folder. Okay. And then I've got my files here. I'm just gonna hop those on over there. And they haven't added anything to the names. I've noticed some of y'all have been getting like errors with it loading or not loading, stuff like that, because when it extracts, it adds something to the name. So if you see something like this on there, that's obviously not named the same, so any references in it are not going to work. So if you have something like that, you just need to make sure you only have one and then just rename it. Okay? So let's take a look at what we got here. So right now we have our 8 ball, we have a button that doesn't do anything, a text element that doesn't seem to do anything. And then let's open our files here. Okay. Alright, so what do we've got? We have got a HTML, our index.html, title magic 8 ball. We've got a style sheet in there. We've got our body element that has a container, contains a div with an ID of 8 ball, an answer circle, dice that has a paragraph tag in there that just says the 8. We've got a button here that says ask me a question with the ID of question button. And then we've got another div that is our question text that says ask any yes or no questions. And then finally we've got our script tag right here, which is referencing our script.js. So let's look at our style CSS first. So we've got a container, normal container setup, body, normal body setup. This is our 8 ball right here. So this is completely created with CSS, so it should be responsive. This is our inner part of our 8 ball, that white circle with the purple around it. Then we've got our answer section, the styling for our button, and then 2 classes here that we don't really see represented that we're going to use a little bit later in the lab, fade out and fade in. And then finally we've got our JavaScript that has our an array called answers that contains 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items. So the index will go up to 5 because remember our indexes start at 0. We've got our document add event listener for the page or the DOM content being loaded, and then an anonymous function here, and then within that I've given you part of a function. So this function show answers takes the array answers right here, and then we're going to look at these things really quick. So Math.Random and Math.Floor. Okay, so I've given you the information, the documents about them. So Math.Random basically is your random number generator. Now, it's a pseudo-random number, not a true random number, because it has a seed, and so it has a tendency to be less random than a truly random number. So that's why this note right here says it does not provide cryptographically secure random numbers. So don't use those for anything related to security. So you need to use cryptographically secure random numbers, which is, window.crypto.getRandomValues instead of Math.Random. But we're not doing anything like that. So the way that Math.Random works is it returns a floating point pseudo-random number between 0 and 1. So like floating point is basically decimal pointed. So we're going to have to manipulate it to get it within the range that we want it to get in, right? The other one that we have here is Math.Floor, which is a really neat one. What it does is it takes any like floating point number or decimal number and rounds it down and returns the largest integer less than or equal to it. So look at our examples here. So it rounds down, not up. Okay. So even if it's 5.95, which we would expect to round up to 6, it rounds down. So it's going to round to 5. 5.05, 5, I'll round down to 5. Here's a negative number one. So if you're rounding down for negative, it's going to go to the largest negative number. So instead of rounding to -5, it would round down to -6. Okay? So these are the two methods that we're going to use here. Okay. So I'll get down to explain it a little bit more once we're closer to the end. Okay, so let's go back to our lab here. So the original for this, I was looking for some things because I was getting bored with what we were doing in the book. Skillcrush.com has some really kind of cool JavaScript projects if you want to work on things on your own. However, I have heavily adapted this. So I'm giving them credit for the idea and for some of the things that I've used for it. But if you just copy the source code from SkillCrush, I'm going to fail you. Because it's significantly different from what they have there. Still go check it out. They use jQuery instead of JavaScript, which is very cool. We're going to kind of go over that next week with our APIs and stuff. But it's neat to just see how different people approach things different ways, right? Alright, so this little paragraph here just gives you what I've already given you. And then the thing about the SkillCrush one on theirs, they have this lovely picture here, but that is just a static picture that they layer the answer on top of. So I'm like, that's kind of a bummer. So we're just going to, what I've done is I've rewritten it in pure CSS. So if we look at our inspector here, the 8-ball is actually made in CSS. Okay. So let's actually take a look at what we're supposed to be doing here. So, number 1, you will be working within the DOM content loaded anonymous function. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create our variables, because we know we need to pull in some information from our index file to be able to access those. So we're going to create 3 variables. The first one is going to be named asked button, that's set to the element with an ID of question button. So question button. The next one set to the ID of answer dice right there. And then the last one, question text. Okay, so those are where those are linked. So how do we create our variables? Well, we're just going to do constant because we're not changing them. I've already given you the name, so ask button. And then it is set to an element with an ID of question button. Now you can do document get element by ID, but I like query selector because it's a little bit faster and less typing. And then, if I make sure to spell it correctly. And then we are grabbing ID of question button. You can sit there and type them out, or what you can do, so on answer text here, what I'm going to do is do document query, whoa, there you go, query selector, and then to make sure I'm grabbing it right, I'm going to hop over, we want to do answer dice, so I'm just going to highlight, so I triple click to highlight, Control C to copy, Control V to paste in my quotes there, and then the same thing with the other one for question text. Anytime you can copy and paste, it is recommended that you do that, or you can autofill, because that cuts down on the number of typos you're going to get. So question text, we're looking for question text. Okay. Alright. So, create variables named ask button. So, ask button, ask button. You can even copy and paste these. Answer text, doesn't matter if there's an extra thing. Set to the ID of answer dice, question text, question text, question text. Okay. Now the next thing that we need to do is we need to add an event listener to the ask button that on click performs a function called ask question. Now we don't have a function called ask question yet, but because of that, where you can like call a function before you declare a function, we can go ahead and use it. So we're going to do the way that we do event listeners. So we do ask button dot add event listener. It's on click, and we want it to do a thing called ask question. Okay. So we're using our ask button variable here. We're adding an event listener that on click, it is going to do a function called ask question, right? Cool. So that's number 2 and number 1 down. So we're on number 3. So we're going to create a function called ask question that, and then does all these things. So let's get our function created first, and you'll notice that I am doing all of this within our anonymous function here, because we want all of these things to be available after the DOM content is loaded, right? So function is called ask question. I'm going to go ahead and just ask question. It does not take any arguments, so we can just have the parentheses there and have them blank, and function is created. Now what do we want to do? Alright, so we want to add the class of fade out to answer text. We want to remove the class of fade out to answer text if it's already there, and we want to create a variable that shows a prompt asking the user to enter their question, sets the question text content to the answer of the prompt, and then finally calls a function called show answer, which takes the variables from the answers array. Okay? Which I've already given this part to you because I didn't want you all to have to deal with the Math.Random part and Math.Floor part. I want you to know what they are, but you don't necessarily have to have them yet. Okay, so let's do this top down. So we need to add the class of fade out to answer text. So answer text dot class list dot add because we're adding the class. Helps if I can type. We're adding fade out to it. Okay, and then same thing, answer text. Class list dot remove. Fade in. Now, some of you may be asking why I didn't use an if-else statement and then use toggle instead of add and remove. And that's something you can totally do. And if you want to do that and then, like, send that to me with it working, I will totally give you extra credit for it because it's a totally viable thing. Okay, next thing, we want to create a variable that shows a prompt asking the user to enter their question. Alright, so how do we do that? Well, the first thing we do is use our let, because we're just using it within this and we're going to change it. So let's do let question. So we're creating a variable called question that is going to be equal to a prompt. So with prompt, the way that prompt works, and you can check your book for this, is it has within the parentheses, it has the first what you want the prompt to show within quotation marks, and then a comma, and then what the default is. So we can do enter a yes or no question, and then default we'll do type your question here. Okay, and then I'm going to save it because I want to show you what it looks like. Okay. I wonder if I oopsed. You know what? I did oopsa. Okay. So, on all of these, they are IDs. They are not elements. So we need to have a pound sign, hashtag sign, whatever you want to call it, in front of each of these, right? And that's why we go back and check. And that's why I put ID in there to kind of give us those. But even I sometimes oops a thing. So, alright. So now, enter a yes or no question. Type your question here. Okay? Okay, so let's go back over to it. So the next thing we want it to do is set your question text content to the answer of the prompt, right? So the way that we do that is we do question text we've already got up here. Gonna just move it down here. And then for changing the text content, very easy. Text content. And then we want to set it equal to the answer to the prompt, but also a little extra. So I'm going to do my back quote here, which again is right next to, well, to the left of the number 1 on your keyboard. Same key as the tilde. But you answered, or, let's see here. Sorry, you asked. And then we're going to do our $, open brackets, prompt, close brackets, close our quotes, and then do our semicolon, right? Okay. And so I've saved it again, and now I want to check and make sure that that's working. So the first thing I'm going to try is just not typing anything in. Okay. Uh-huh. It's not working. So let's take a look here. Question text, make sure I have everything. Question text, question text. Text content, text content. Oh, ha, that's why. I bet some of you were like, what are you doing, Megan? So, we want it to be set to our variable of question, not to the word prompt. I don't know where I got prompt from. Alright, so let's see here. You asked. Type your question here. So we know that's working. Yay. Okay. And then the next, we want to call the function showAnswer that takes the variables in the answers array. So showAnswer, answers. And what that's doing is saying that when somebody clicks that button, what we're going to do is we're going to call this function here. Okay? So we're kind of nesting functions. Alright. Also, if you noticed, because we're using our fade in and fade out here, the question is going to fade in and fade out. Alright. I have too many things open. Let's do this. So the last thing we need to do, and I wanted to do this as like kind of an easy little fun lab for y'all. So it shouldn't hopefully take too much time because I know finals are coming up and y'all are busy. So what we're going to do, we have all of our variables here. So, okay. Index. Set a variable to a random index of the answers array. Hint, use the answers array and the random index variable. So what we've done here is we have set a variable called random number to a random number. Pseudo-random number, right? So this is going to give us something between the 0 and 1. You know, 0.75, 0.3248, blah, 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 blah. And then what we do is we take another variable and we take that random number, that pseudo-random number, and we times it by answers.length. And what that does is it gives us a random number that is going to be between 0 and our array length is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So between 0 and 5.999999 repeating. Okay? And then we have a final one that is going to be our random index that does the math floor, which rounds it down to the nearest whole number, right? Of the random number between 0 and 5.999. Okay? So it is going to be a random number, effectively, a random whole number between 0 and 5 each time somebody clicks that button. Make sense? So now we need to create a variable. So I'm going to just kind of go down to a new line here so you can see it. I'm going to create it just as answer. And I'm going to set it equal to. So this is where our hint comes in. This is our answers array, right? And then this is how we call an index of random index. Okay? So let's try something here. So I'm going to do something that you don't have to do, but I just want you to see how this works. Okay. Inspector here. We're going to our console here. Going to reload. So here is our random index, what it's going to be. And we can do it even further. So instead of the answer, let's set it to random index. Shall we? Random index. So you can see what numbers it's calling. So I've saved that again. And then 3, 1, 0, 3, 2. So you can ignore this click handler violation thing. That's something I have set up for something else, so just ignore that. But these are all of the different indexes that it's calling, right? So, let's see if it saved that. Okay. So if we look over here and then over here, so our index of 3 would be 0, 1, 2, 3, of course. Or 0, 1. No. Or 0. Yes. So that's how it's getting those random answers every time, right? Kind of cool. Alright, so now we have our answers variable, which we've done right here. It's using the answers array at a random index. And then it wants us to remove the fade out class. So we can basically copy and paste this, or you can write it out. Either way is fine, but you're going to have answer text dot class list, and we're going to do dot remove because we're removing fade out. Add the fade in. Add the fade in. Okay. So what does that do? Well, let's hop. I've saved it. I'm going to hop back over to my Magic 8 Ball here. So now, since it's removing, obviously the answer is not going to change every time, but it's doing that animation to fade in and fade out. Right? So there's our fade in, fade out. I don't know why it's not showing fade out here, but obviously the class fade out is there. It might be because it's not doing like a full refresh of it. Alright. And then the last thing we want to do is set the text content of the answer text to the variable of the random index. So, last thing we do here is we do answer text dot text content is equal to our answer, right? Save. So now let's ask, so I've saved it and refreshed. Let's ask a question. Is JavaScript fun? I'm gonna hit OK. Well, I couldn't have planned that better if I wanted to. So we have our lovely question up here, we asked if JavaScript fun. The answer is in your dreams. And everything works. We can check our console log here. There are no errors. Everything works. Some fun stuff, if you want to build on this, you can add answers to the array. You could add a shake animation using rotate and translate in your CSS if you wanted the ball to shake. You could do things like even creating like the 3D die in it if you wanted to and have that rotate. Take a look at the Skill Club one. Skill Crush. Apologies. If you do any of that, just let me know and I'll give you like 10 extra credit points on it. Otherwise, just turn it in as is. You know, we're going to go to File. We've got our week 9 Baker here. We're just going to go to 7-zip. Or if you don't have this yet, you can always go to Send to, Compressed, and then week 9 Baker, right? And then the last thing we're going to do is upload it to our file here, which can't do because I'm not a student, and then close it out. So let me know if you have any questions, concerns. We have our help thread. You can always email it to me. I will be caught up on grading by the end of the week again. Have a great rest of your week. Finals are coming up. Don't stress too much. We have our Stress Less events coming up as well on campus. But yeah, thanks. Bye.